Sira sat in the cold metal cage. Her hands were tied, her feet chained. She was small, thin, and weak. She had not eaten in 2 days. The ground was dirty and wet. The air smelled of rust, blood, and fear. Around her were other cages, each with someone inside, aliens from many planets, all afraid, all silent. This was Grathor, a prison planet, a place where the weak were sent to die. Some called it a meat farm, some called it a death camp, but most just called it hell. Sira had arrived. Only 3 days ago, sold by pirates, traded for food. She was just a number now, cage 47. In the distance, a loud buzzer rang. Everyone in the cages jumped. That sound meant one thing. Another name on the list. Another prisoner taken to the butcher's block. Sira had heard stories. They said the butcher's block was a metal table. They tied you down, and after that, no one ever came back. She had seen the smoke, heard the screams, watched the guards return with blood on their boots. She knew her time was coming. One of the guards stopped in front of her cage. He looked at the clipboard, smiled. "Tomorrow, little one," he said. "Try not to cry. The meat tastes better without tears." Then he laughed and walked away. Sira did not reply. She just stared at the floor. She had no tears left. She was ready to die. The next morning, everything changed. The main gate opened. That was strange. The gate only opened for one reason. A buyer had arrived. The other prisoners whispered. A buyer could mean anything: slave master, scientist, hunter. But this time, it was something different. He walked in slowly, tall, strong, wearing black boots, a gray jacket, and a calm face. A human. Sira had never seen a human before. She had only heard stories. Some said humans were monsters. Some said they were heroes. She didn't know what to believe. The guards greeted him like a guest. "Welcome, sir," one said. "Looking for workers or parts?" "Just looking," the human replied. He began walking through the cages. One by one, he didn't stop, didn't speak, just looked. Some prisoners begged. "Please, take me, help me, save me." But he said nothing. Then he reached her cage. Sira didn't move, didn't beg. She had no voice left, but the human stopped. He looked at her for a long time. His eyes were not cold like the guards. They were quiet, deep, and sad. He turned to the guard. "This one," he said. "I'll take her." The guard blinked. Confused? "This one? She's nothing but skin and bones. She won't last a week." The human didn't answer. He pulled out a black card, the kind that meant he had full access. The guard shrugged and opened the cage. The human stepped inside. He bent down, unchained her hands, then her feet, and finally spoke. "I'll take you home." Sira looked at him. She didn't speak. She didn't believe it. Home. What was that? She didn't even remember. The human held out his hand. She stared at it, then slowly reached out. Her fingers were shaking. She touched his hand. It was warm. It was real. The guard laughed. "Don't let her slow you down, sir." But the human didn't care. He lifted Sarah gently in his arms and walked out. No one stopped him. No one dared. The prisoners watched in silence. Some with hope, some with envy. Sira didn't speak. She just held on to his jacket as if it was the only real thing left in the world. For the first time in years, she felt something. Not pain, not fear, but something soft, something bright, something like hope. The human carried Sarah through the metal halls. The guards didn't stop him. He moved like he belonged there. Like he had done this many times before, Sira held on to his coat tightly. Her small fingers gripped the rough fabric. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't even know his name. But something inside told her this was not a trap. He walked fast but careful. Every turn, every corner, he knew the way. They passed rooms with locked doors. Sira heard voices behind them, crying, whispering, Others still waiting for help that would never come. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. The human reached a back gate, a small one not used by many. He pulled out a card and scanned it. The door slid open with a soft beep. Outside, the wind hit her face. It was sharp and cold, but it felt like freedom. A black ship was waiting, not big, but fast. Its engines were already humming. He placed her gently in the back seat, strapped her in, then jumped into the pilot seat. The ship lifted off. The prison behind them grew smaller, then disappeared into the clouds. Sarah looked at the human. She wanted to speak, but her throat was dry. She hadn't talked in days, he noticed. He handed her a small bottle of water. She took it slowly, drank it in tiny sips. It tasted like life. "Are you hurt?" "I'm safe," he asked. His voice was calm, not soft. Kind. She shook her head, then whispered, "Why?" He looked at her through the mirror. "Why what?" "Why me?" she said. Her voice broke. He didn't answer right away. He focused on flying. The stars moved past them like falling lights. Finally, he said, "Because no one else did." That answer made no sense to her, but it felt true. The ship entered hyperspeed. Sarah felt a small pull in her chest, then silence. The engines quieted, the stars blurred. They were far from Grather now. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," he said again. "The word you used earlier," she said. "Home." "I don't know what that is." "You'll learn," he replied. Hours passed. He gave her food, soft, warm, easy to chew. She ate like she hadn't eaten. In weeks, because she hadn't, she looked around the ship. There were pictures on the walls, not many. One of them showed a little girl. She looked human, dark hair, smiling, holding a small pet. Sarah pointed to it. "Your daughter." The man paused. "Yes," he said. "Where is she now?" He was silent for a long time, then answered, "Gone." Sarah didn't ask more. She understood that word well. She had lost people too. "Everyone, you looked like her," he said suddenly. "That's why I stopped." Sarah blinked. She had never looked like anyone before. No one ever said she mattered. No one ever looked at her like he did. "Do you have a name?" he asked. She nodded. "Sarah, nice to meet you." "Sarah." He reached out a hand. She shook it slowly. Her hand still trembled, but less than before. "I'm Commander Ray," he said. Later, when she felt strong enough, she asked the question again, "How did you get into Grather? That place doesn't let anyone in without reason." Ray smiled a little. "I used to work with the Alliance." He said, "I still have some access, you mean? You planned this?" "Yes," he said. "I've been to that planet 3 times before. Every time I took one prisoner with me." Sarah stared at him. "You've done this before." He nodded. "There are too many like you, left to die. I can't save them all. But I can save some." Sarah looked down. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I don't know how to say thank you." "You don't have to," he said. "Just live." That night, Sarah didn't sleep, not because of fear, but because her mind was full of new thoughts, hope, safety, memories she didn't even know she had. The stars outside the window moved slowly, like they were dancing. She whispered one word to herself, a word she wanted to believe: home. The ship landed on a quiet planet, not Earth, but an Earth outpost. A small place in deep space, with human buildings, green trees, and clean air. Commander Ray helped Sarah step out of the ship. Her feet touched soft ground for the first time. In years, no metal floors, no chains, just warm soil under her toes. She looked around. The sky was light blue. A gentle wind moved through tall grass. A group of people stood nearby. Humans, not soldiers, not guards, just normal people. One woman stepped forward. She smiled at Sarah. Not fake, not forced, but kind. "Welcome," the woman said. "My name is May." Sierra looked at Ray. He nodded. "It's okay." Sierra didn't speak, but she gave a small bow. May held out her hand. "Come, we have a room ready for you." The room was small, but warm. It had a bed, soft blankets, a window with light. There was a table with food, clean clothes on a chair. Sierra walked around slowly, touched everything. She had never had a room before, never had anything that was hers. A young girl came to visit. Her name was Ellie. She was about Sierra's age. Maybe 10 or 11. Ellie brought a toy. "A small stuffed animal? It's a bear," Ellie said. "You can keep it." Sierra held it like it was gold. No one had ever given her a gift. Days passed. Sierra started to eat better. She learned how to hold a spoon again, how to smile again. May taught her simple words. They used flashcards and games. Sierra was quiet at first, but she listened, watched, learned. Commander Ray checked on her every day. He never asked for anything, just made sure she was safe. Sometimes they sat under the stars. He told her stories about Earth, about oceans, snow, music, and laughter. Sierra listened with wide eyes. It all sounded like a dream. One night, she finally asked, "Why do humans care?" Ray looked at her, surprised. "Not all do," he said, "but the ones who do. They care deeply." Sierra thought about that. She didn't understand it fully, but she wanted to. One morning, Ellie took her to the garden. There were flowers, red, yellow, and blue. Sierra had never seen flowers before. She bent down, touched a petal. It was soft like silk. "This is called a rose," Ellie said. "It's pretty." Sierra whispered. Ellie smiled. "You're smiling," she said. "I think that's the first time." Sierra touched her own face. It was true. Her mouth had moved on its own. She had smiled without even trying. That night, she had a dream. She was back in the cage, alone, afraid, cold. But then, the dream changed. She saw a hand, reaching for her, and a voice, "I'll take you home." She woke up crying, not because of fear, but because for the first time, she knew the dream had a different ending. She wasn't in that cage anymore. Weeks passed. Sierra started to help in the kitchen. She watered the garden, played with Ellie, spoke more words each day. One afternoon, May handed her a piece of paper. "You drew this?" she asked. Sierra nodded. It was a picture of a house with stars above and 2 people inside. "It's your home?" May asked. Sierra nodded again, then said, "It's not real, but I want it to be." May smiled. "Maybe one day, it will be." One evening, Commander Ray brought her a small backpack. "It's yours," he said. "For school." "School?" Sierra asked. Ray nodded. "You're ready?" Sierra opened the backpack. Inside were books, pencils, a notebook, all new, all hers. She looked at him. "Thank you," she said. Ray knelt beside her. "Promise me something." She looked at him. "What?" "When you're strong enough," he said, "help someone else the way I helped you." Sierra nodded. Her eyes were wet. But this time, the tears felt right. That night, she stood outside her room, looked up at the stars. She whispered one word. Again, a word that once felt empty, but now felt full. Home. Years had passed. But the memory of the cage never left Sierra's mind. She was no longer small and weak. She had grown taller, stronger, braver. Her eyes still carried the past, but now they also carried fire. Commander Ray had trained her not to fight in anger, but to protect, to lead, to save. She had learned languages, maps, and codes. She studied how the prison systems worked. She even practiced in fake rescue missions. Sierra had a purpose now. She had a mission. And that mission took her back to the place she once feared most. Gratho. The ship landed quietly. It was night on the prison planet. The sky was dark red. The air heavy with smoke and silence. Sierra stepped out in full armor, not to hide who she was, but to show she had changed. She wasn't the girl in Cage 47 anymore. She was Captain Sierra of the Human Rescue Alliance, and she had come with a team. Ray walked beside her, older now, with gray in his beard, but still strong, still proud. "You sure about this?" he asked. Sierra nodded. "It's time." They moved through the outer gates. Using old codes and hidden tunnels, Ray had mapped them out years ago. Every hallway brought back memories. The cold floor, the screams, the smell of fear. But Sierra kept walking. She was not here for revenge. She was here for justice. They reached the holding cells. Guards were few, lazy. They never expected trouble from the inside. And no one had ever come back, until now. Sierra opened the first cage. Inside was a boy, barely 10, his eyes wide with fear. She knelt down. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm here to help." The boy didn't move. He was frozen like she once was. So she said four simple words. Words that changed her life long ago. "I'll take you home." Tears filled his eyes. He nodded slowly. Sierra smiled. "Let's get you out of here." One by one, cage by cage, they freed the prisoners, children, women, wounded aliens, all forgotten by the galaxy, but not by Sarah. Each one heard the same promise. Each one followed her like she was light in the dark. Suddenly, alarms screamed. The guards had discovered them. "Move fast," Ray said. "I'll hold the east wing." Sierra led the group through the tunnels. Blasters fired behind them. Walls shook from explosions. But she kept going. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from duty. They reached the extraction point. The ship was waiting. She helped each prisoner climb aboard, made sure everyone was safe. Then she turned back. Ray was still out there. She ran, dodging sparks and smoke. She found him pinned behind a wall, blaster in one hand, wounded leg. "You always run into fire," he said, smiling. "You taught me how," she replied. She helped him up. Together, they escaped through the smoke. The guards chased them, but Sierra set off a flash bomb. A wall of light exploded behind them. By the time the enemy recovered, she and Ray were gone. The ship lifted off. Sierra stood near the ramp, watching Grathar disappear below. The same planet that once tried to break her now watched her rise above it, later, on the ship. The rescued children sat together, wrapped in blankets, eating food. They looked at her with quiet hope. One girl asked, "Will we be safe now?" Sierra knelt beside her. "Yes," she said, "you're safe." Another child asked, "Where are we going?" "Home," she replied. "Where people care about you." Ray sat nearby, resting. He watched Sarah speak to the children, his eyes. "We're tired, but proud. You did it," he said. Sierra looked at him. "No," she replied. "We did it when the ship reached the outpost." The children stepped onto soft ground, just like she once had. They looked up at the sky, confused, scared, but also curious. Sierra smiled because she knew what came next. The food, the bed, the garden, the stars, the beginning of healing. That night, as Sierra stood under the stars, a young alien boy walked up to her. He held her hand. "Are you staying with us?" She shook her head. "There are more out there," she said. "Still waiting. Will you go get them too?" She looked at him and said the same words again. "I'll take them home." The sky was golden, the wind was soft, and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. The outpost had changed. It was no longer a quiet corner of space. Now it was a place of healing, a place where broken lives were repaired. Sierra walked through the garden slowly. Every step reminded her of how far she had come. She passed flowers she once feared to touch. She passed the room where she once slept with her shoes on, afraid to dream. She passed the wall with drawings made by the rescued children. One drawing showed her wearing armor, holding a child's hand under the words, "Our Captain." Commander Ray sat on a bench nearby, a cane in his hand. His leg never healed fully. But he said the pain reminded him that they had one. Zero sat beside him. "They're safe," she said. He nodded. "They are." She watched the kids running through the grass. Some were laughing, some chasing each other with sticks, pretending. They were space swords. "There was a time," she said, "when I couldn't imagine smiling again." Ray looked at her. "But you did," he said. "And now they can too." Later that day, a ship arrived, not a fighter, but a delivery vessel, bringing books, medicine, and clothes. Among the visitors was a young reporter, a human woman, curious and excited. She sat with Sira in the garden. "I've heard your story," she said, "but hearing isn't the same as feeling." Sira smiled politely. She had learned to smile like that, gentle, careful, still guarded. The reporter asked, "What kept you going?" Back then, Sira thought. For a long moment, she looked at her hands. They were no longer shaking. Then she replied, "4 words." The woman blinked. "What words?" Sira looked into her eyes. Softly, she said, "I'll take you home." The reporter's eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak again in the evening. The children gathered under the open sky. It was storytelling night. A new tradition started. By Sarah, every week, they would sit in a circle, and someone would tell a story of fear, survival, and hope. That night, a small girl sat in the center. She was shy, with long ears and pale skin. She held a tiny bear in her hands, just like Sira once did. She began her story. Soft voice, slow words. "I was in a cage," she said, "dark and cold. She looked at Sira. She found me." She didn't say much at first, but then she said something. The girl smiled. Her voice grew stronger. She said, "I'll take you home." The children clapped, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Sira wiped a tear from her cheek, not from sadness, but from pride. That night Sira walked outside alone. The stars were shining bright above. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind. She remembered everything, the chains, the fear, the silence, and then the voice that had saved her, Ray's voice. Those 4 words. They had given her life, and now she had given it to others. She opened a small box in her hand. Inside was her old cage, tag cage 47. She stared at it for a moment, then tossed it into the fire pit nearby. It burned slowly, the numbers disappearing into ash. She whispered to herself, "That girl is gone. I'm not her anymore." Then she walked away, not looking back. In the morning, she met with the team. A new mission was ready. Rescue another group of forgotten lives waiting in the dark. Ellie, now older, walked beside her, wearing light armor, her eyes full of purpose. "Are you nervous?" Ellie asked. Sira shook her head. "No. You think they'll follow you?" Sira looked toward the ship. "They always do," she said, "because I always come back as the engines roared to life." Sira stood tall at the ramp. Her cape moved with the wind, her face calm, strong, full of fire. Behind her stood her team. Not soldiers, but survivors. Each one once broken, now whole. They flew off toward the stars, toward another cage, another child. And when they arrived, and that child looked up in fear, Sira would kneel down, hold out her hand, and say the same words once more, "I'll take you home." The stars outside the window looked calm, but Sira's heart wasn't. The mission had gone well. They had rescued 15 more prisoners, mostly children, mostly silent. But this time, something was different, something she couldn't ignore. Back at the outpost, everyone celebrated. The rescued ones were given food, water, and soft blankets. People smiled, laughed, said it was another victory. But Sira didn't smile, not this time. She stood outside the medical wing, looking at the door. Behind it sat a boy named Ren. Maybe 12, eyes cold, jaw tight. He didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't even eat. He just stared at the wall. Silent, still, just like she had. Once later, Ellie walked over. She held 2 cups of tea, offered one to Sarah. No change. Ellie asked. Sia shook her head. He hasn't spoken since we got him. They sat in silence, watching the stars blink in the sky. Do you think he's too broken? Ellie whispered. Sarah took a deep breath. There's no such thing. The next day, Sarah entered Ren's room, alone. No guards, no doctors. She sat on the floor across from him. She didn't speak, just waited. Minutes passed. Still nothing. Then, very quietly, he said, You left them. Sarah blinked. What? You left them behind, he repeated, his voice low, bitter. There were more, he said. In the lower cells, Sarah's throat tightened. I didn't know, I screamed, he said. I screamed your name. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't remember hearing it, but it didn't matter, because he remembered. She tried to explain. There wasn't time. We were under fire. We had to leave before, I know, he said, but his voice cracked. They were my sisters. Sarah froze. The words hit her like stone. He turned his face away. I thought you were the hero. But you're just like them. She wanted to reach out, but her hands stayed still. She knew this pain too well. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She walked through the dark halls, her boots light on the floor. Every step felt heavier in the garden. She sat on the bench alone. Ray found her there. You're blaming yourself again. He said. I left his sisters, she whispered. You didn't leave them. Ray said, You didn't know, but that doesn't matter, she replied. Not to him. Ray nodded slowly. Sometimes saving one life means failing to save another. I never wanted to make that choice, she said. No one does, he answered. But you came back, remember? You didn't stay gone the next morning. Sarah gathered the team, prepped the ship. She ordered, We're going back. Back. Ellie asked to Grather. No, Sarah replied. To the lower cells. They flew fast. No celebration this time. No plans to save everyone. Just one goal. Find the ones left behind when they landed. The planet was already being evacuated. The prison was being shut down by order of the Galactic Council. Sarah moved quickly through the halls. She ignored the orders, the guards. She went straight to the old level, the one she had missed. They reached a sealed door. Behind it, 3 girls, thin, quiet, scared, still waiting, Ren's sisters. They didn't cry when they saw her. They didn't smile. They just reached out their hands, and Sarah took them back at the outpost. Ren stood by the landing pad, his eyes wide. He saw them step out of the ship, alive. One of the girls ran to him. Ren? He dropped to his knees and hugged her tight. No words, just tears. Real ones this time. Sarah stood back, watching, her heart heavy but full. Later, Ren came to her. He held a small flower in his hand. I picked this, he said. For them? She smiled. For them. He looked up at her. And for you? Sarah took the flower, held it close. You came back. He said. She nodded. I always do. That night, she returned to the fire pit, stared at the stars again. Not as a captain, not as a hero, but as a girl who once needed saving, and who now understood saving one person doesn't mean the story is over. There's always someone else, still waiting, still hoping. And if she had the strength, she would find them too, and say the same words. Again, even if her voice broke, even if her heart ached, I'll take you home. The new shelter was full. Rooms were running out. Beds were shared. Blankets passed from one to another. The rescues were increasing. More and more forgotten souls were coming in. Some smiling, some silent, and some not grateful. Sierra walked down the hallway of the medical wing, her boots quiet, her eyes tired. She paused outside room 12. A sign on the door read, "Quarantine side was a girl named Lisa, age 14, rescued from a dark asteroid camp. Alone, malnourished, and dangerous. Not because she had weapons, but because she refused help. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak, wouldn't listen. She bit a nurse on the second day, threw water at Ray, and stared at Sierra with eyes full of hate. Sierra entered the room slowly. No guards, no restraints. She sat across from Lisa on the floor. The girl said nothing, just kept pulling threads from her blanket. Sierra waited, like she always did, minutes. Passed, then hours. Finally, Lisa whispered, "You shouldn't have brought me here." Sierra tilted her head. "Why?" "I didn't ask to be saved." Sierra said nothing, just listened. "You think you're helping." Lisa continued, "But you're just building another cage." Sierra blinked. That hurt. 'Cause part of her wondered if it was true. Later in the control room, Ray found her looking at old files. "Something bothering you?" he asked. She said, "I'm building another cage." Sierra replied. Ray leaned on the desk. "She's not wrong to feel trapped." Sierra looked at him. "Then what am I doing all this for?" Ray sighed. "You're not doing it to be right. You're doing it to give them a choice." That night, Sierra walked to the edge of the outpost, a place where grass turned to stone, and stars seemed close enough to touch. She remembered the cage, not the metal, but the feeling, the belief that no one cared what she wanted. Maybe some of the rescued didn't want to be held. Maybe some didn't even want to be free, not yet. Freedom was strange when all you knew was pain. The next morning, she returned to room 12. This time, she didn't sit. She stood by the door and said gently, "You don't have to stay." Lisa looked up slowly. "What?" Sierra opened the door wider. "There's a garden, a road, a sky. You can walk under it, alone if you want." The girl narrowed her eyes. "Will you follow me?" Sierra shook her head. "No." "Will anyone stop me?" "No." Lisa stood, her legs weak. She stepped outside. No alarms, no guards. No shouts, just silence. And sky? She walked for 10 steps, then 20, then stopped. Sierra watched from behind. Said nothing. Lisa turned back, eyes softer now. "Why would you let me go?" "Because someone should have let me choose," Sierra replied. Lisa stared at her, then whispered, "I'm not ready." Sierra smiled gently. "That's okay." Lisa came back inside, but this time, she left the door open. That evening, Sierra stood before the group. Some were new, some were healed, some were still broken. She cleared her throat. "I know many of you don't understand why you're here," she said, "and some of you wish you never came." She paused, took a breath, "And that's okay. This isn't a place to fix you. It's just a place to give you the chance to fix yourself. If you want to leave, the gates are open, but if you want to stay, the doors are too." No one moved, but the silence was full. Heavy, real. Later, Ray sat beside her on the wall. "Big speech," he said. "Risky?" "I needed them to know they're not prisoners here." Ray nodded. "You just gave them something powerful." "What?" "Choice." That night, Sierra returned to her room. She opened a small notebook on the first page. She wrote a new set of words. Not all cages have bars, and not all rescues are silent. Some cry, some scream, some push you away. But all of them echo. She closed the book, put it beside her bed, and whispered the words she still believed in, even when they hurt, even when they were not enough. "I'll take you home."